Okay, so hello everyone and welcome today to another edition of SpraynPray1000's The Verdict. I am SpraynPray1000. It's been a while since I finished this playthrough. Today we're going to talk about Recon Wildlands. It's a game that I recently played alongside three of my loyal fellow co-hosts that typically join me from time to time on my playthroughs. Recon's Wildlands is the latest open world game released by Ubisoft. Really, it's a third-person shooter that emphasizes different ways to approach accomplishing your objectives. You play as 4 members of the fictional Ghost team, a unique branch of the United States military that's given special access and weapons in order to accomplish missions, essentially from the shadows. And you and your 3 friends, if you play solo or if you can play with other people. If you play with at least one other human, they remove the AI, so you could end up playing with 2. You could end up playing with 2 people only. You could end up playing with 3 people only, or you could end up playing with a full 4-man group. I think that one minor complaint that I would give is that I think that they should give you an AI or 2 AIs if you're playing with 2 to 3 people. I think they should kind of just, do you a solid and keep the game constantly at a 4-man. That's a little bit of a minor thing I found while just messing around and stuff, grinding and whatnot. It's just one of those weird things that, because the game is kind of designed to have at least 4 people working together, or at least you and 3 other AIs. But in any event, how would I talk about the story of Recon Wildlands? Well, the story of Recon Wildlands is pretty simple. Essentially, like I said, you and 3 other ghosts get dropped into Bolivia, which has become a narco state led by a cartel called Santa Blanca, which specializes in smuggling and importing cocaine across the entire world. And as these ghosts, you are here to shut down Santa Blanca through almost any means necessary, whether it be through open combat, whether it be through stealth, turning the people against them. And essentially, the game forces you to do 1 mission to start, and then after that, like they heavily emphasized, the entire portion of the game is open world. You can choose what you want to do next and when. And that, from the moment that you finish that first tutorial mission, the game does a pretty good job of continuing that. I like that about this game, is that you could choose how you want to tackle it. You could do random order, you could do based on difficulty level, you could go all over the place. And I like that feel of the game, that you're never really forced to do anything. I think that really contributes to the free nature, the kind of free spirit of this game. And I like that a lot. Now, one of the things I'll mention later that I kind of think is a detriment is kind of the way they handle the whole system where you dismantle each branch of Santa Blanca. So Santa Blanca essentially has 4 major components as you try to work your way towards uncovering the boss, who is called El Sueño. The first is security, essentially how they, maintain their operation through protection. Then there's smuggling, there's production, and lastly there's influence. Now, each branch has a buchon, which is basically kind of like a head honcho of an area. Each area has a buchon that corresponds to a certain branch of Santa Blanca's operation. Your mission is essentially to do enough missions to destabilize each buchon, and then eventually either kidnap them, force their hand into cooperating with you, kill them, etc. And from there, once you take out enough buchons, you're able to fight an underboss of the area, and from there, you're also able to take out the operation head. And once you defeat your first operation head, you get your first mission to try and take down Sueño, and then afterwards, you get your second mission once you do 2 operations, and essentially, you can end the game right there. The game has 2 separate endings that you can find. One of which is for 100%, which is very doable, for all the story missions. The other one is for anything less. And you can see both on a playthrough, although you can miss the bad one if you go only for 100, which I don't know why they kind of let that happen. That's a little awkward, but anyway. But the game itself, I found that the story was pretty interesting. I mean, it's actually worthwhile, as I found out, later on to go back and find all the different little documents to try and figure out the story behind each different person. And they really did a good job of fleshing out a lot of these characters for the most part, be it the Buchones. The ghosts themselves have chitter chatter with each other all the time, and it's really kind of funny. At first, you know, it's a little bit interesting and good. It gets a little repetitive, but not as much as I would say other games do with the same, you know, 5-6 dialogue options every time you're traveling or something like that. And it really makes you feel like these guys are, you know, close-knit. They got each other's backs. And the story itself, I think, is very interesting. I think the story is pretty good. Now, like I said, there's one major flaw that I think that, well, if you want to call it a flaw, sure. I think that it's something that it's lacking. I feel that, given the context of the game, it's a little bit lacking, and while it's fine as it is, I think for them to take this extra step would have really hammered the story home. When you're taking down each branch of this operation, it's just a little bit weird, as my phone goes off, of course. It's a little bit weird just how El Sueño is constantly punishing people as you're essentially deleting entire branches of his organization. What I'm kind of trying to say is I would have liked to see a little bit more reactionary story transformation. So, like, okay, you take out the security branch, right? And we talked about this in the playthrough. Let's say you take out the security branch. All right, cool. Now El Sueño knows you're coming for him, but he doesn't have a lot of protection. So it'd be really cool if, like, you made missions easier. You know what I mean? Because they don't have a lot of muscle. You know, a certain faction in the game called Unidad, which basically functions as the police, will, you know, start to have beef with Santa Blanca, which is pretty cool. And it would have been interesting, like, that does begin to play a part, but it would have been interesting to see that progress even further. Like, oh, you took down his influence, so now maybe when they call for help, maybe no one comes, or maybe the people turn against them, or something like that. And there are rebels in the game that do occasionally come to help you fight, and you can summon a lot of abilities from them. But in general, it would have been interesting to see them take it to the next level. Like, okay, you took down 2 branches, now he's really got to work with his remaining 2 branches to try and, like, combat you and stuff. I think that would have been really cool for them to throw in something like that. But as it stands, you kind of just go through a branch. You know, you hit a bunch of stuff. Oh, well, this guy's fucking up. Time to let him loose. And, you know, that it does get a little bit repetitive to see that happen again and again. And while it isn't a detriment to the story overall, it just would have been cool to see, like, El Sueño kind of reacting to the way you're approaching things. It would really contribute to a New Game Plus if you want to do things a little differently. That's really my only major complaint with the story. Otherwise, I was pretty satisfied. At first, I thought it wasn't going to be a very deep story. I thought it was just going to be, you know, your kind of run-of-the-mill, just take this guy down. And it surprised me. It was pretty good. Now, the gameplay, admittedly, I haven't talked much about. It's a third-person shooter. I mean, like, the gunplay is basically your average third-person shooter. Each weapon can be equipped with a suppressor, except for the special weapons that you get from taking down Buchones. So you can go guns blazing or stealth, depending on whether or not you want to screw it on. Some missions require stealth, some require combat. It's a nice mix. I like that. You know, the usual kind of stuff. It's not blasé and bland, but it's the typical stuff you're probably used to at this point. This game's open world is massive. Okay, and just to cover it, even in a helicopter, takes a long time. Now, there is fast travel, and it's very easy to unlock fast travel. You don't even need to interact with the fast travel point. You just need to find it, and then you can teleport there. You can teleport onto friends. So they did a good job of having this open world. And now, because open world is such a standard in video games, I also kind of got to throw this in a little bit. There is, I feel, enough stuff in this open world. Just like nowadays with games, typically open world is just kind of stuff they throw out there. You know, oh, well, here's an open world game, and then it just basically adds on an extra 10 minutes every time you want to go somewhere. Like, oh, I want to go over here. Cool, it's 15 kilometers that direction. All right, and even in a helicopter going, you know, that'll take you like 10 minutes to fly. You know, and hypothetically, there's no fast travel in this universe, but like, this game has stuff to do. Like, we were kind of mission-minded. We wanted to, you know, get through the game while doing a lot of other missions and stuff, but we were focused on the story. But there, I feel, is enough stuff in this game, in this open world, to really warrant it being an open world game. And I like that. This world is massive, by the way. There's tons of different areas. There's salt flats, there's mountains, there's snow-capped mountains. There's a variety of locations between jungles, deserts, canyons, and it's just crazy to explore all of that while you're out and about exploring these areas. Each area feels different and unique. They have a lot of different vantage points if you want to do a lot of sniping. The sync shotting also returns, and that plays a big benefit in this game. And yeah, that's really, really awesome about it. Now, on the flip side of the gameplay, like I said, sync shotting, where you can direct AI teammates, or your friends can join in and mark targets that you can simultaneously take out, that returns, and that's pretty cool. I like that. The other thing that I really like is the RPG level up system. So in this game, in addition to having to, unlock and find various upgrades to your weapons, you also have to take time out to spend upgrade points. You get skill points from either leveling up, finding them in the overworld, stealing medals. There's a variety of different things you can upgrade into. You can upgrade your tools, your physical stats, so you could have unlimited sprint, or maybe better bullet resistance. You can upgrade your revive speed. You get a drone that you can use for scouting and marking targets, which is pretty neat. The drone can be outfitted with different like medical upgrades that will let you revive teammates, or EMP upgrades, and just all sorts of cool stuff, which I think is really nice. You get binoculars you can use to scout out areas. There's a lot of tools to play with in this game. Whether you're forced to go stealthy, whether you're forced to go combat, or whatever you want to do, I like that, and I think that that really contributes to how you can approach things. If you and your team really want to play this super stealthy, this game really gives you the tool set, and it's not like it's a linear game. You can approach it from a variety of angles, and that's what's really adds to this game's benefit, I feel. Now, sadly, you knew there was going to be a detriment to this game, and unfortunately, this game, at least at the time of the playthrough, was very, very glitchy. And that's not to say that the game was bad, but the game had a lot of glitches, a lot of bugs with missions, a lot of oddities, a lot of weird things. And that's not necessarily a horrible thing, but, they'll patch it later. The game was playable, but there were definitely a lot of, like, silly little mishaps here and there that did kind of detract from the overall experience, which could have been better. Let me just put it like that. But thankfully, otherwise the gameplay is pretty solid. You can do a lot of interesting things. You can upgrade, like I said, rebel abilities that will let you summon vehicles, summon combat, let you scout areas and stuff. Just overall, can't really think of too many negatives. Maybe just that, some of the weapons I feel like aren't that great. Don't really have much of a place. But, I mean, that's just there, here and there. Some people will find different builds that they like. I kind of found mine early and stuck with it, which was pretty cool. So gameplay-wise, this game gets a very strong, gameplay aspect to it. It's definitely best played co-op, I feel, although it is still playable if you were to play solo player, which is nice. Now, graphics, presentation, this part is always the part I have, like, not a lot of stuff to say. The game, I think, looks really good. I mean, obviously, like every other game out there, you know what I mean, is like, oh, it looks great. Well, that's everything that's come out in the last, 5 years. But I think they really did a good job, if not so much with the character models, which are kind of average, typical, with the environments. The environments of this game are sick. They are so beautiful to just sometimes be flying through these different areas. I just feel that, for the most part, and I guess I'm kind of wrapping here, is that the game really needed to have a little bit more variety with some of the non-story missions. I think, like I said, that thing with the reactive story elements, El Sueño will kind of change plans and stuff to mess with you. I think that should have happened, because that was also kind of that would have been a big plus, I feel. The glitches definitely need to be ironed out, because those definitely detract a little bit from the fun. What else? Some of the controls for vehicles are a little bit weird, and a little bit of the on-foot controls are a little weird. Nothing too horrible, but in general, there's a lot of things I think that could have been done better, but they're not like super glaring flaws. So I'm going to be lenient with this game, because I think that this game is a lot of fun. I think that it has a lot of interesting locations. Jutting off from that, it has a lot of different ways you can approach the missions, which in turn revitalizes and diversifies the gameplay. I think that the story is interesting. It just could be a bit stronger. And so what would I give Ghost Recon Wildlands, which, by the way, I played on the PS4. I'm going to give Ghost Recon Wildlands an 80 out of 100. And the reason why is, like I said, other than, like, you know, the glitches, the story that could be a little bit beefed up, and a few awkward controls, I didn't have a lot of problems with this game. I thought this game was a pretty solid game. I thought that it was definitely something that I would want to continue playing. It's definitely something that's unique. It's different. And I think that for the open world aspect, I totally believe that it's the biggest open world game that Ubisoft has ever released. I totally believe them, because I played a lot of them. You know, maybe Black Flag could give this game a run for its money, but this open world is gigantic. It is massive just to try and get around it. And there's enough stuff in it. It feels lively enough. You got patrols driving by and stuff that it really is just that fun. So Ghost Recon Wildlands, solid 80 out of it. Definitely something that if you have some friends, you should totally pick up. I'm SpraynPray1000, and I will talk with you next time. I don't know what the next game I'm going to review is, but we'll see when we get there.